I agreed to an open marriage because I was afraid of losing her, but now my wife blames me for agreeing to it. My wife stood in front of me furious. She said I had manipulated her into an open marriage so I could sleep with other women. She blamed me for everything, but she was the one who made this choice. She told me we could only stay together if we opened our marriage. I agreed because I was afraid of losing her. For months, she went out every weekend, meeting new people, doing whatever she wanted. I stayed home, trying to accept it. But when I finally did the same, she acted like I had betrayed her before any of this happened. We had a normal marriage. My wife, Lisa, and I had been together for 7 years, married for 4. We had our ups and downs, but nothing serious enough to make me think our relationship was in danger. Then, one night, we had an argument. It was over something small. I don't even remember what started it. Maybe it was about house chores, or maybe I forgot something important to her. All I know is that it escalated fast. She was angry, I was frustrated, and instead of cooling down, the fight kept getting worse. The next morning, she packed a bag and left for her mother's house. I called her, but she didn't answer. A few days passed, and I started to panic. I couldn't lose her over something so stupid that I drove to her mother's house and begged her to come home. She looked calm, too calm, like she had already made a decision. That's when she told me she would come back, but only if we opened our marriage. I didn't know what to say. I thought she was testing me, trying to hurt me for the argument we had. But she was serious. She said she loved me, but she wanted freedom. She wanted to explore. If I said no, she wouldn't come back. I should have refused. I should have walked away, but I was terrified of losing her. So, I agreed for the first month. Nothing changed. It felt like she had forgotten about the whole thing. We still spent time together, watched our favorite shows, cooked dinner, and went to bed like always. I started to believe that maybe she had just needed to hear me say yes, that maybe she just wanted to feel in control then. One Friday night, she went out, and after that, everything changed. At first, I convinced myself that nothing was wrong. Lisa was just going out with her friends, enjoying herself, and she always came home. But then it became routine. Every weekend, she got dressed up and left the house. Then, some weekdays, too. She started coming home later and later. When I asked her about it, she reminded me that I had agreed to this. She wasn't doing anything wrong. If I looked upset, she would tell me I had nothing to worry about. But I did worry. I stayed home while she was out, trying not to think about where she was or who she was with. It felt like I had lost control of my own marriage. I told myself that if I just held on, things would go back to normal, but they didn't. Lisa started acting different. She was on her phone all the time, texting people I didn't know. She stopped checking in with me like she used to. If I asked her what she was doing, she would get annoyed, like I was overstepping. I tried to talk to her about it once. I told her it was hard for me to adjust, that it felt like she was slipping away. She just sighed and told me that I needed to work on my insecurities. She said this was supposed to be good for us. I didn't know what to say. I had agreed to this. So what right did I have to complain? That's when I stopped trying. I let her do whatever she wanted. I stopped asking questions. I stayed quiet, even when I felt miserable. I thought that was the only way to keep her, but I was wrong. I started to feel invisible in my own home. Lisa barely talked to me anymore. When she was home, she was either on her phone or getting ready to go out. She didn't ask how my day was, didn't sit next to me on the couch like she used to. I told myself I could handle it, that I had no right to be upset. But every time she left for the night, something inside me cracked a little more. One evening, I tried to tell her how I felt. I told her I missed her, that I didn't feel like we were a couple anymore. She barely looked up from her phone and said, "You agreed to this. Why are you acting like I'm doing something wrong?" That was it. That was the moment I realized she didn't care how I felt. I stopped sleeping well. I lost my appetite. I spent hours staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was just what my life would be now. Then, one day, I decided I couldn't live like that anymore. If Lisa was going out and enjoying herself, then I needed to stop sitting at home like a forgotten husband. So, I texted a few friends and made plans. For the first time in months, I went out, and that's when everything started to change. Going out after months of staying home felt strange. I had spent so much time waiting for Lisa, trying to accept the situation, that I had forgotten what it was like to do things for myself. At first, I stuck to my usual routine, having a drink, talking to my friends, and keeping to myself. But then, something unexpected happened. Women approached me. They started conversations, asked me questions, and showed interest. I had not planned for this. I had not gone out looking for attention, but it was there. That night, I didn't do anything except talk. But I left the bar feeling different. For the first time since Lisa had asked for an open marriage, I did not feel trapped. So, I started going out more. At first, it was just to be around other people. I wasn't looking for anything serious. But as time passed, I realized I didn't have to live like I'd been. I was in an open marriage. Lisa had made that decision, not me. Eventually, I met someone. I told Lisa about it over dinner. I wasn't trying to make a point. I just wanted to be honest. I told her I had met a woman and that we had spent time together. Lisa didn't react right away. Then, she started asking questions. She wanted to know who the woman was, where I had met her, if I was planning to see her again. I told her it wasn't serious. That I was just living by the same rules she had been following for months. Lisa didn't say much after that, but I noticed her behavior change. She started going out less. She stayed home more. She sat next to me on the couch again, asked me about my day, made small talk. It was the first time in months that she seemed to care about what I was doing. At first, I thought she had finally realized how distant we had become. But then I understood what was really happening. Lisa had only been comfortable with an open marriage when she was the one benefiting from it. She had expected me to wait for her, to accept whatever she did without doing the same. But the moment I started seeing other people, she was no longer okay with it. That was when everything started falling apart. Lisa's behavior changed completely. She started watching me closely, questioning everything I did. At first, it was subtle. She would ask when I was coming home, who I was with, what I was doing. But then it became more controlling. She started calling me when I was out, demanding to know why I wasn't answering immediately. If I didn't text back fast enough, she would send more messages, each one angrier than the last. She began checking my clothes when I got home, looking for any sign that I had been with another woman. She would go through my phone when she thought I wasn't looking. She even tried to follow me once, showing up at the bar where I was with my friends. She acted like it was a coincidence, but I knew it wasn't. One night, she was waiting for me when I got home, arms crossed, her face red with anger. She accused me of spending more time with other women than with her. She said I was disrespecting her. She demanded to know if I cared about her at all. I reminded her that she was the one who had set these rules, that she had been going out every night for months without caring how I felt. That didn't matter to her anymore. She said it was different because she was a woman. She said men always had an advantage in open relationships, and she wasn't going to let me treat her like she didn't matter. She started trying to control me. She told me I had to text her every hour when I was out. She wanted to know exactly where I was at all times. She told me she didn't want me seeing the same woman more than once. When I refused, she lost control. She started screaming that I had been planning this all along, that I had never loved her, that I had only agreed to the open marriage because I wanted to sleep around. She was furious, not because I had broken any rules, but because I had stopped waiting for her. But I wasn't going to let her control me anymore. Lisa became obsessed with controlling me. It wasn't just questions anymore, it was demands. She told me I needed to come home earlier. She wanted me to stop seeing certain women. She even suggested that we close the marriage again, but only if I stopped first. She would go through my phone at night when she thought I was asleep. If I left my laptop open, she would check my messages. One night, I caught her holding my phone, scrolling through my texts. When I asked her what she was doing, she threw it onto the couch and said she had the right to know what her husband was up to. She started showing up at places where she knew I would be. She waited outside bars, pretending it was a coincidence. If I was with a woman, she would make sure she was seen, acting like she had just run into me. She wanted to make sure I felt her presence. Then, one night, she lost control completely. I came home late after seeing someone. The moment I walked through the door, Lisa started screaming. She accused me of humiliating her, of making her look like a fool. She said I had abandoned her, that I didn't care about our marriage anymore. I told her, again, that this was her idea, that she had made the rules, and I had only followed them. She didn't want to hear it. She started crying, saying I had never really loved her, that if I had, I never would have gone through with this. She said she had made a mistake by opening the marriage, but now it was my fault for not stopping it. She begged me to stop seeing other women. She said we could fix this, that we could go back to how things used to be. But I wasn't interested in fixing anything anymore. Lisa's desperation only got worse. She started tracking my location through my phone. If I turned it off, she would call nonstop, leaving angry voicemails. She even started showing up unannounced at my work, pretending she needed to talk about something urgent. She tried to guilt me into staying. She told me I was destroying our marriage, that I was choosing other women over her. She said I was supposed to be her husband, not someone else's man. When that didn't work, she changed tactics. She became affectionate again, acting like the woman I had fallen in love with. She started cooking my favorite meals, asking about my day, dressing up at home like she used to when we first got married. She wanted to pull me back in, to make me feel like she was still the most important person in my life. But it was too late. I had spent months suffering in silence while she did whatever she wanted. I had waited for her to come back to me, only to realize she never would. And when I finally stopped waiting, when I finally started living my own life, she couldn't handle it. One night, after another fight, I told her I was done. She begged me to stay. She promised she would change. She even said we could close the marriage again, that she would never see another man if I just stayed, but I didn't want her anymore. I didn't love her anymore. Lisa had forced me into an open marriage because she thought she would have all the power. She thought I would sit at home, miserable, waiting for her to come back. She never expected me to move on. And now, she was left with nothing. I packed my bags the next day. Lisa followed me around the house, crying, pleading, trying to convince me to stop. She said we could fix things. She said she had made a mistake. She even tried to blame me again, saying I should have never agreed to an open marriage in the first place. I didn't argue. There was nothing left to say. She tried to block the door when I grabbed my suitcase. She held onto my arm, telling me she couldn't live without me. But I didn't feel anything for her anymore. I had spent too long hurting, waiting, begging for her to care. Now, it was her turn to feel what that was like. I moved out that night. I didn't look back. A week later, Lisa called me. She said she wanted to try couples therapy, that we could rebuild our marriage. I told her no. A month after that, she called again, asking if we could meet for coffee, just to talk. I ignored the message. Eventually, the calls and texts stopped. The divorce was simple. There was no fight, no drawn-out legal battle. Lisa had nothing to stand on. She had been the one who wanted an open marriage. She had been the one who had pushed me away. In the end, she had no one to blame but herself. I should have walked away the moment she gave me the ultimatum. I should have known that a marriage where only one person's feelings mattered was never going to last. But in the end, I still won. Lisa had lost me forever. And this time, she was the one left waiting.